Remember those old rusty toe straps that bolt to the frame? The body shop just painted over them. That is not gonna work for me. Besides, they're both bent. So, put them in a vise, straightened them right out, put them in the blast cabinet, then powder coated them silver to match the car. Also powder coated the bolts along with fender bolts, idler arm bolts, strut tower nuts, and some unobtainable thick 14mm flat washers. I'm having to reuse those. Also, you'll see some brake hose clips, the steering box lube nut. And of course, the heater tube. Oh, and remember the disc brake dust plate from episode 8 that was bent? The original from the silver car I actually made worse. A little learning curve going on there. Anyway, sculpted the one off the green car back to original shape. With a fresh powder coat on her, she looks beautiful. So, the new fenders. Guy used the old bolts. Obviously, he painted the fenders off of the car. Fuck, is that a rusted bolt? Fucker put a rusted bolt in my car. It's pissing me off. So naturally I'll be changing that right away. I feel like I should have a washer under those, huh? Yeah. This is an example of how close the Phil's Rotary's fenders came to fitting, but they needed to be massaged in order to really work. Okay, those exposed holes weren't cutting it for me, so I got bigger washers for these fender bolts. Even these bigger washers aren't cutting it for me. This is a highly visible area of the car. Anytime you pop the hood to show anybody what you got under there, people are going to see that. They're going to be like, dude, what's with these giant washers, man? They're like dinner plates. So now I'm really regretting not using my factory fenders. They obviously fit right up. Didn't have this issue. Phil's Rotary's fenders, they fit eventually. But there's a little bit of a struggle. It's kind of an eyesore once it's done and you've had to make holes bigger. I can make a career out of cleaning my battery hold-down tray. If I could just figure out how to make money. Absolute hardest thing to clean for me. This one has been a bear. I've spent hours in the blast cabinet. I've discovered that my blast cabinet is just too weak to deal with it. So, you know, these things are corroded. Usually they're a casualty. What I end up doing is using the blast cabinet at the shop where I do powder coating. Theirs is heavy duty industrial, so I can get a lot more work done on this thing than I can at home. Even there, I've still spent like a good hour, and as you can see, it still has a long way to go. Man. I feel like it ought to be celebration day. I mean, I've been working on this battery tray for years. The very first part I ever put in the blast cabinet was this battery tray. You know, in my blast cabinet, I don't have a strong enough air compressor to really bust through this thing. Luckily, I have access to a shop with a really powerful blast cabinet, so I've been taking it there. You know, I've worked on it for hours, days, and no, literally over the last couple of years, I've been dicking around with this battery tray. Now, it's finally done. I wouldn't say done, you know, but how much grief can a battery tray give me? It's just a battery tray. Why is it such a big deal? Why isn't Phil's making these, or one of these other guys that make these spare parts? Now, you know, there's still a lot of stuff on it, and it's so heavily corroded that, I need to hit it with POR15. But I wanted to get as much stuff off of it as I could prior to the POR15. Lots of holes. So anytime you sandblast anything that's heavily corroded with lots of rust, in this case the battery tray had rust plus battery acid, plus water. What a fine marriage. I mean, that just went to town on eating through metal. When you do your body work on any of these restorations, no matter what kind of car it is, you should sandblast the entire car. Lots of pinholes are going to show up, just like on this battery tray. In my case, I didn't have the ability to sandblast my car, so that didn't happen. It's the right way to do it. Eventually you got to figure out what your budget is and what your where you're going to draw the line on your restoration. So when it came to my body work, I had to use POR15 to treat rust rather than sandblasting the whole car. To properly sandblast the whole car, you really need to put it on a rotisserie. It's like painting a car with a little tiny, it's like painting a car with a nozzle like that. You got to decide if you got time for that shit. Or the money. I don't have a rotisserie. Nor do I have the resources to get one. I really envy these guys that have the resources to put their car on a rotisserie and totally spin it around, blast it inside and out. Even if that means popping pinholes, that's good. You need to know where the rust is so you can treat it or eliminate it, cut it out, and replace it with new sheet metal. In my case, I wasn't able to do any of that stuff, so I'm using POR15. My body guy fully coated the trunk with POR15, and he hit several spots on the engine bay with POR15. Not sure I'm happy with his application job. We'll talk about that later. So, went off on a little tangent there about sandblasting and pinholes, and back to the battery tray. So the battery tray's been sandblasted. You got most of the rust and corrosion removed. Gonna hit it with POR15. Should be pretty nice then. I'll prevent it from advancing any further than it already has. The few pinholes that are there, just gonna live with it. Any of you guys got a better battery tray lying around, send me a message. I'll probably buy it. This puppy is forever sealed. Got my first batch of goodies back from the platers. Did a zinc chromate run. My voice is all shot, so I'm not gonna talk much. Sure y'all recognize most of these things anyway. So the first time the guy called me to pick these up, I'm taking a look at them and they're all dusty, powdery, kind of looking like doo-doo. I'm like, come on man, I know you all can do a better job than that. And somebody warned me that this plater would try to see what he could get away with. And I should look at everything before I pick it up. It's kind of a weird way to do business. Seems like you'd want to do an amazing job first time. He did everything again second time. Looks amazing now, but whatever. Some of you really sharp fellas might notice there's an extra set of caliper bolts here. That extra set is for sale or trade. YouTube, thanks for watching my RX3 restoration videos. Click subscribe if you haven't already, watch my previous episodes, and be on the lookout for my next couple vids. One dealing with front suspension reassembly, and another on the rear differential, coming up soon. Peace out, brother.